In this next episode of our Getting to Know Jesus series, we visit the place where Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes, and we learn about the food Jesus enjoyed when he lived here in first century Judea. Today, the Promised Land is truly flowing with milk and honey. In fulfillment of several prophecies in the Bible, modern Israel brings forth an abundance of fruit and vegetables year-round. The fresh foods available at every local market and the flavors that can be experienced in Israel are out of this world. And because this is the land Jesus called home 2,000 years ago, I sometimes wonder, what cuisine did he enjoy when he lived here? What food options were available? And what did a first century Jewish diet consist of? That's why I met up with Danny the Digger Herman, archaeologist and tour guide, and asked him to help me get to know the food Jesus ate when he lived here. We started out in Tiberias and headed toward Tabgha, the location where, according to tradition, Jesus miraculously multiplied the loaves and fishes for his followers. So Danny, you've brought me here to Tabgha, and today we're going to talk about a subject that's interesting to many people. I am a foodie myself. We're going to talk about food and the diet in the time of Jesus. So talk to me a little bit about that and why this place is so significant.
Yes, there are actually two locations here, two different events of the New Testament, but they both relate to food.
Okay.
What did people eat at the time of Jesus, especially in this region? Well, archaeology presents right here one device for one type of food. What is this big round flat stone?
I know this one. This is an olive press.
Indeed. Okay, around us, even today, you have some olive trees.
Yes.
And this is the right climatic region for growing olives.
Right.
But how do you turn olives into the final product, which we all love, olive oil? Mm-hmm. So the first part is harvesting it. You kind of milk the branches into a big basket, and then you bring it all here. So what you do is you take this round stone and you rotate it around it. What's missing are the wooden beams, the one going up here and the one going through the round stone itself.
Yes.
And then you push it or pull it, and it crushes not only the olive, but even the pit. The pit also has a bit of oil in it.
Okay.
Okay, but then it comes the next stage.
That.
Yes, the next stage is taking that squash and squeezing it. You need about a weight of 1/2 ton to get all the liquids out of that squash. Even if we both dance over it, I don't think we can produce enough weight, right?
Well, I hope not.
Yes, not yet. Maybe after a big meal, we'll get closer to 1/2 ton of pressure.
So everything comes and goes in the middle?
Not really, it goes over it. You put it in baskets over this big round vat.
Okay.
Imagine two wooden beams going up, and they have like a knot carved into them.
So like a big bolt with something that twists down onto
Now,
it?
on top of it, imagine two big screws, one here and one there.
Okay.
And if you start tightening the screw, the wooden beam here in the middle starts pressuring. And every drop of liquid is squeezed out of it and is collected into the vat. You can see the grooves here leading to it. You still need to separate the water from the oil because the liquids coming out of it is a combination of both. How do you do that? Let it rest. Oil floats. Okay, so if you let it rest, you need to then just scoop the oil from the top, and that's the final product.
Very good.
That's what you will use to season your salad, to put over your fish. This site is associated with the multiplication of the loaves and fish.
Right.
And behind it is another site where Jesus and the disciples had some grilled fish.
Right.
Let me show
by
you.
the shore of the sea. Very good.
We made our way on foot from Tabgha toward a church that marks the location of yet another meal Jesus served his followers.
So Danny, we're talking about food in the time of Jesus. We already referenced the multiplication of the loaves and fishes. Now we're at another location right down by the seashore.
And right behind the other site that relates
Yes.
to the multiplication of loaves and fish,
Yeah.
this place is called the Church of the Primacy of Peter.
Okay.
John chapter 21, I believe, records the event after the resurrection.
That's right.
Jesus appears again by the Sea of Galilee. It records the disciples going to fish, not too lucky, the nets are empty,
Right.
but they see a man here on the shore who directs them where to fish, and then they recognize it is him. And they come to shore and they join him to a meal of fish and loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Okay, again, that basic diet of fish and bread appears in that story.
Fantastic. Well, shall we go down by the water?
Yalla.
So Danny, we're down here by the water. You can almost picture Jesus and the disciples right here on the seashore,
Yeah.
grilling their food and getting ready to eat. It really is a beautiful place.
Yeah, this chapel is devoted to that event of that meal with grilled fish and bread and
Yeah.
Peter being appointed.
Now, there are some archaeological reasons why we believe that this could be the place.
Yes, well, the event itself was not in any inhabited area. So
Right.
there's no archaeology of the first century that could prove this is the location.
Okay.
But since the 4th century, it's identified here. There are like centuries old chapels here that continuously mark this spot.
We're talking about food today, and probably there's a better place that we can go to learn about this, right? We can check out something,
You want
place that
something
you know.
tangible,
Yeah.
something you can
a
consume.
demonstration. maybe.
So indeed, in Nazareth, there's a site called the Nazareth Village,
Okay.
which are specialists in making 1st century meals.
Let's go.
Let's go and check that out.
Sounds great.
Don't go away. When we come back, the experts talk to us about first century Jewish food and the kosher diet Jesus and his followers observed. I was a pastor for over 20 years before I first went to Israel, only to realize that I was totally disconnected from the roots of my faith. Since then, I've been on a journey of discovery, and my faith has come alive in ways I never could have imagined. I'm Jeff Euters, Executive Director of First Century Foundations, and I'm excited to invite you to explore the land of the Bible and to discover your part in a Bible story that isn't over yet. First Century Foundations exists to reconnect Christians to the foundations of Christianity. And we do this by creating Bible-based media focused on Israel. But we don't just reconnect you to Israel in the Bible. We help you participate in what God is doing in Israel today by connecting you to over 70 ministries in Israel who desperately need our support. Will you partner with us? Together, we'll explore Israel's biblical past while playing our role in Israel's bright future. It was amazing to explore the locations where Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes and prepared breakfast for his followers. And it made me wonder what food options were available when Jesus lived here 2,000 years ago. And what did the diet of Jesus and his earliest followers really consist of?
I am happy to report that Jesus had a Mediterranean diet, which we all know now is a heart-healthy diet. Because, of course, they had grains of barley and wheat, so bread would be part of everyday eating. And that took a lot of work on the part of the women to grind enough grain every day to bake bread sufficient for the family. There were olives, there were grapes, So those can be, the olives can be preserved, of course, and eaten throughout the year. Grapes can be made into wine for celebration, for Shabbat. Almonds grow here very well. Pistachios, walnuts are all part of our diet here. The figs are amazing. The dates are wonderful. So all of the fruits and the grains, supplemented by eggs and poultry. Eggs, of course, are the quickest reproducing source of protein in the animal world. And fish. Fish from the Sea of Galilee. The kosher fish included sardines, Saint Peter's fish, which we know as tilapia, of course, so everyone knows what a Saint Peter's fish is today, although ours are very, very big. Fish could be salted and dried so that you would have an ability to eat them over a longer period of time. There were dairy products from the sheep and the goats, so cheese, milk, soft cheeses like curds and Lebanese, soft cheeses to eat. So we have a good dairy supply in that as well. And occasionally meat for special occasions, because to raise an animal to eat is a much more expensive proposition than utilizing it for its dairy products or for the eggs.
Regarding the concept kosher, which is mispronounced, of course, in English. In Hebrew, it's kasher. Kosher in modern Hebrew means physical fitness, but they are related because kosher really means fit. So I guess you could say that kosher means ritually fit. Nowadays, it's much easier because you just look on the package that you buy in the supermarket and you look for the symbol of a rabbinic kosher society saying this food is kosher. And then anybody who cares about kosher says, okay, I'm all right, I don't have to worry about it. But that only happened over in the past 50 or so years. Before that, people had to know what foods were kosher and what foods weren't. And that is all written in the books of Moses.
Kosher rules go back to Leviticus, and there's, chapters that talk about clean and unclean animals, and also the signs to determine what animal is kosher. And for example, a mammal, an animal, beef as we know it, okay? One of the identifying symbols is it has to have a cleft hoof and chew its cud. So cow is your main, kosher animal in that sense. A pig is most definitely not a kosher animal. That's considered an unkosher animal. Also fish, a kosher fish will have fins and scales. So seafood like crabs and lobsters and stuff, that's definitely not kosher. And all of these animal groupings and what we can and what we can't eat is very much specified in Leviticus. Then we have another aspect of kosher, which is not to mix meat and milk. And that is something that is an oral tradition based on a verse that is repeated 3 different times in the Bible, which says, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk.
Usually, it's easiest to keep dairy kosher because then you don't have to worry about the meat. And if you're having fish or eggs and you have cheese and you have hummus, we have lentils, watermelon, all of these different things, it's very easy to keep dairy kosher for most of your meals. When they would cook meat, then they would not serve cheese with it. They might have hummus, they might have some type of soup and kind of spicy dip that you could have as well with bell peppers and with not tomatoes. Tomatoes weren't here then, but you can make a spicy kind of dip and vegetables.
And a third part of kosher is what we call ritual slaughter. And you don't see that in the Bible. That has been completely passed down by oral tradition, but it's very ancient. It is something that would definitely have been part of a Second Temple period Jewish life. Ritual slaughter means you're cutting an animal at the neck at a certain part, very swift, painless, and is meant to be a very humane method of slaughtering an animal. And then you would also drain the blood, and that's something that is very clear also in Leviticus, God says, you cannot eat blood. You do not eat blood. So part of the kosher process is to make sure you have completely drained the blood from an animal before you then butcher it and eat it.
In Jesus' time, all Jews ate kosher, and that's all they ate. However, in Jesus' time, people were paying too much attention to these rituals and not enough attention to the, guess what, love thy neighbor. So I think that Jesus said, forget about all of those ritually kosher foods. Does God really care what you put into your mouth? He cares about you put out of your mouth. Now, that's amazing for shock value, and for people who didn't take it for the shock value but think, what is this with this Jesus guy? Is he trying to get rid of the whole Torah? He said clearly, I didn't come to go do away with the Torah. Came so that you'd be able to follow the Torah. And if you don't follow all of those interpersonal relationship commandments, then what is it worth that you're following the rituals?
Don't go away. When we come back, Danny and I arrive at Nazareth Village and step back in time 2,000 years to learn how daily bread was made in the homeland of Jesus.
First Century Foundations is committed to helping those in Israel who are most in need. And this is possible because of people like you. Your donations are supporting the most vulnerable in the land, especially aging Holocaust survivors. By providing them with food and medication and spending quality time with them, First Century Foundations with our partner ministries are making a real difference in the lives of people who have experienced so much suffering.
People like us who lost everything and live with the pain, to have people that help us a little bit, we're very grateful.
Call or write today and receive our bi-monthly newsletter, including the Israel Prayer Watch, to help you pray for all the ministries we support in Israel. Partner with us for just $30 a month or more, and your generous donations can make a difference in Israel today.
We soon arrived at Nazareth Village, and suddenly I felt as though we had been transported back in time 2,000 years. We made our way to a first century Jewish home where a woman was preparing daily bread.
You know, it's hard to imagine, Jeff, just 4 or 5 generations ago, our ancestors also lived in the same way that Jesus lived here some 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. Think about that. I mean,
no electricity, no
looking at
machines.
these-
A horse for transportation, if you're lucky, if you're rich. If not, it's
Mostly
a donkey.
they walk, though,
or by
right?
foot. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Wow, Danny, this is really authentic. Incredible. Hi.
Hi, you must be Miriam. Yes. What a name for a woman in Nazareth.
Perfect.
And Nazareth Village really does a great job in presenting how the ancient labor was done. If we were talking about loaves and fish and bread making, this is the real thing. This stone is even the actual stone that was used back then.
Okay.
The local limestone, typical to the Galilee, to Jerusalem, is not really efficient if you want to turn wheat into flour. You need the stone that comes from Capernaum's area or the Golan Heights.
Right.
Or in order to make bread, this is the type of stone you need. So Miriam is really operating the domestic, local, authentic machine, very simple machine.
What it would have been like in the
Yeah.
days of Jesus.
And you can see here already going towards the final result.
Yeah.
Crushed wheat
Getting quite fine
turn
there.
into flour that would eventually be good, fresh, tasty bread. You want to try it? See how
Sure.
much
I
hard
don't
labor
mind-
it is?
I don't
Go
mind
ahead.
helping.
You counter Miriam's work. I'll add the wheat. Okay, let's pause. There, you see?
Ah,
You can even taste it. It's still rough, but
Yeah, but
eventually
it's-
it will become a good pastry or some good pita bread.
right. So Danny, we have our flour. What's next?
Well, that was just the first stage. That's hard labor by itself. But then, if you want to turn it into what will be baked into bread,
Okay.
Miriam has prepared here the dough,
Right.
which is not just the flour anymore. It has some salt,
Right.
water, a bit of oil. Remember, olive oil also comes from this
From the
region.
press at
and
Tabgha,
yeast. If you want it to be more tasty, you add yeast to it. Unless it's towards Passover, then you eat unleavened bread.
Right.
Such bread, for instance, was in the Last Supper. But this is the more common type of bread, turned into small balls that will be then flattened, enlarged to something that looks like pita bread.
Pita. Okay.
Okay?
Very good.
And then it has to be baked.
Yes.
For this, we have a really nice looking first century oven. And watch this part now. How do you bake it? Where do you put it, Jeff?
I'm going to guess with all the coals down inside that it goes somewhere on the outside here. Is that?
Let Miriam now do her magic.
So this is very different than the process that we do at home. You know, you go to the Walmart or Best Buy and you buy a bread maker. You bring it home.
I just
There's a
go to the
list-
bakery. I don't
There's
even make
But at home, there's a list of things. You put it inside and you turn it on, and it's done.
Also here, you turn it on, the fire.
Yeah.
And it eventually generates a similar product.
I'm with you though. I think the bakery is probably the better idea. And yeah.
But 2,000 years ago, Miriam of Nazareth, like our friend Miriam here,
Yeah.
would probably make bread on daily basis to feed her husband, her
Yeah.
son. And
Pretty amazing to
this
think
is,
about.
Really a nice reenactment of this daily life. Keep in mind that people couldn't refrige. So you
Right.
probably had to make bread almost every day.
Yeah.
And fish, okay, you had to salt it in order to preserve it. This is
Right.
what the city of Migdal was known for. But there wasn't much else. First of all, no corn, mango, banana, coffee, cocoa. Okay, it's the old world diet, which is these ingredients and a bit more. It was limited.
I have a even greater appreciation for Jesus, if that's possible. Jesus somehow survived without coffee.
Yes.
My goodness.
We
Wow.
cannot live without it, it seems.
I know, right?
I really adore people who have the discipline to stay away from all sorts of addictions. We don't think of it, but coffee is in a way also an addiction.
Careful. Don't use the addiction word. That makes me uncomfortable.
Well, we're so used to it, let's put it this way. You
No,
could
I
say
know.
we're addicted to bread. We
Well,
can't last for too long without bread as well.
You could say that I am, yes. That would be possible. The moment of
Why not?
truth.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, an interesting question, by the way, did Jesus bless over the bread? We definitely,
Of course he did.
religious Jews definitely say a blessing today.
Okay, so we do the blessing.
Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam.
Very good. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Okay.
B'te'avon.
Very good.
Oh, boy.
Thank
it is
you,
nice.
Miriam. Great job. This is amazing.
Don't go away. When we come back, Danny takes me out for lunch to experience what is arguably the most delicious food in Nazareth, or perhaps in all of Israel.
Israel. That meaningful name is mentioned more than 2,300 times in the Bible. It is from this land, nation, and people that Christianity emerged some 2,000 years ago. But since that time, Christianity has become mostly disconnected from Israel, and without an understanding of the Jewishness of Jesus and our Hebraic foundations, so much of the depth and meaning of the Bible is lost. First Century Foundations is committed to helping Christians reconnect and stay connected to Israel. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can view our TV programs and weekly video podcast, Keeping It Israel. Follow us on Facebook and our other social media platforms. Let's reconnect to Israel and stay connected. Find out more at firstcenturyfoundations.com.
Learning about first century daily bread making at Nazareth Village was so interesting, and it sure made me feel hungry. So Danny took me to his favorite restaurant in Nazareth for some delicious modern Israeli cuisine. Wow, Danny, this is nice.
This is not only very nice, it's very tasty. This
Okay,
is
I like the sound of that.
my favorite restaurant in Nazareth and maybe the best kebab in all of Israel.
As we walked to our table, I could see the chefs passionately preparing incredibly fresh food. It looked amazing.
So Jeff,
So first explain, they're gonna bring the salads, and that's so much per person, you
such a
said?
wide variety of salads, and
Okay.
they're so good.
Wonderful.
And then the main course is kebab. Kebab is minced meat of lamb and cow with fat and onions and herbs. And you can also order lamb chops. I think there's a fresh section there waiting for us.
Okay. We quickly ordered, and our table was soon covered in authentic, local, and freshly made Middle Eastern cuisine. Multiple salads, freshly made dips, olives, and pickled vegetables covered our table. And this was just the beginning.
And then, just when you think you're so stuffed, then the main course arrives.
Wow.
So you roll out of this restaurant at the end. Because it's just
Am I gonna
so
fit
much.
in the camera shot afterwards? That's gonna be the big
You might
question.
need a bigger car. Yalla, let's eat.
Let's eat.
So it's a mix and match. Take a bit of
Okay.
everything, make your own cocktail, and there'll be fresh pita bread coming.
When we were feeling pretty full from the delicious salads, our main course arrived.
Jeff, are you ready for the main course?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is the ultimate foodie experience right here. Paper-thin pita covered a beautiful arrangement of lamb chops, kebab, and chicken. It looked and smelled incredible. Oh, wow.
You have your lamb chops, we have the famous kebab, chicken. Be careful with the hot
Jalapeno.
Jalapeno.
Yeah.
A bit of onion, potato, just right.
Wow. Well, Danny, I don't know about you, but I don't want to talk anymore. I just want to eat. Look at this. This is beautiful. And so, hey, thank you for joining us today. You need to come here to Nazareth and check out Diana's restaurant right on the main street. It's amazing. But we're going to finish our dinner, and we'll see you next time on First Century Foundations. Thanks so much for joining us today as we traveled around the Galilee, learning about the food Jesus ate when he lived here 2,000 years ago. Please join us again next week as we continue our quest to get to know Jesus better right here in his homeland.